After 15 years of marriage, my wife got ready for a night out. She carefully dressed, preparing for a date, not with me, but with her lover. As she leaned in close, she whispered softly, "Jake, I need to feel young and free again tonight." What she didn't realize was that I had already packed her bags and changed the locks on the doors. Meanwhile, her lover's wife sat waiting at a restaurant, divorce papers in hand, ready to confront both of them. When my wife expressed her desire to feel wild again, I knew those words weren't meant for me. But what she didn't anticipate was that her dream night was about to turn into a nightmare. These chilling words come from Jake, a devoted contractor and a loving husband living in suburban Ohio. For 15 years, Jake and his wife Emily appeared to have a perfect life. They raised 2 children, shared countless family dinners, and navigated the ups and downs of marriage together. But recently, something had shifted. The warm familiarity of their relationship had grown cold and distant. Late nights at work, hushed phone calls, and the constant glow of her phone screen during odd hours replaced the once intimate moments they shared. Jake noticed the changes almost immediately. Always attentive, Jake couldn't ignore Emily's increasingly vague and evasive answers when he asked what was going on. As the cracks in their relationship widened, his mind raced with questions. Was she unhappy? Was he losing her? Instead of addressing his growing fears, Jake tried to convince himself it was just a rough patch, something they would overcome, as they always had. But Emily's yearning to feel young and free was about to shatter their world in ways neither could have imagined. The subtle changes in Emily's behavior only deepened Jake's suspicions. She spent more time on her phone, often smiling at messages she never shared. She began dressing up more frequently, without a clear reason. These small shifts began to weigh heavily on Jake's heart. The tipping point came one evening when Jake overheard part of a phone conversation. Though he couldn't make out the exact words, the intimate tone was undeniable. Later, he caught a glimpse of a flirtatious text on her phone. That single moment confirmed his worst fears and shook his faith in their marriage. Unable to confront her directly, Jake's unease grew. Quietly, he began observing Emily's actions, making mental notes of her new habits. Errands took longer than usual, absences went unexplained, and entire hours of her day were unaccounted for. Each observation added to his growing dread. As he pieced together the puzzle, Jake realized the truth was darker than he'd feared. Something was deeply wrong. Left with no choice, he resolved to uncover the full truth, no matter what it took. Sitting alone in the quiet of their living room, Jake reflected on their 15 years of marriage. The memories of love, laughter, and raising their children together only amplified the ache in his chest. But amid the heartbreak, he resolved to act carefully. A rash confrontation would only lead to chaos. In this moment of clarity, Jake uncovered an unexpected detail that changed everything. Emily's lover was also married. This revelation sparked a plan. Instead of confronting Emily alone, Jake decided to reach out to the man's wife. Together, they could piece together the full extent of the betrayal and hold their spouses accountable. Fueled by a new sense of purpose, Jake began setting his plan in motion, determined to confront the affair with calmness yet decisiveness. Jake shifted from heartbreak to quiet resolve. The truth about Emily's infidelity was undeniable, and it was time to act. Jake waited for the right moment, which came as Emily was upstairs, preoccupied with preparing for her anticipated date. Oblivious to the storm brewing beneath her feet, she spent hours getting ready. Meanwhile, Jake set his plan in motion. He began by packing Emily's belongings into suitcases. Each item placed inside felt like a final goodbye to the life they had built together. The packed bags were neatly arranged by the front door, a silent yet profound statement marking the end of their marriage. Next, Jake changed the locks on all the doors. Every turn of the key echoed in the quiet house, a symbolic gesture of closing one chapter and protecting himself and their children from further harm. With the house ready for Emily's departure, Jake took the next step. He contacted the wife of Emily's lover. The conversation was surreal but also liberating. They confirmed what they had suspected. The betrayal ran deep on both sides. United by a shared pain and determination, they agreed to meet at the restaurant where their spouses planned to rendezvous. Together, they would expose the truth. As the clock ticked closer to the fateful evening, Jake felt an unexpected calm settle over him. The fiery rage that had once consumed him was now replaced by a steely resolve. He knew the aftermath would be messy, but there was comfort in knowing he was reclaiming his dignity and control over the situation. The evening arrived, and Emily was filled with excitement, completely unaware of the upheaval awaiting her. She carefully selected her outfit, dressing in a way Jake hadn't seen in years. Her enthusiasm was thinly veiled behind vague excuses about the event she claimed to be attending. As she prepared to leave, she turned to Jake with a sly smile and whispered, "I need to feel young and wild again tonight." The word struck Jake like a dagger, but he held his composure, offering nothing more than a silent, knowing look. As the door clicked shut behind her, he stood motionless, watching her car disappear down the street. His mind raced with memories of their life together. The laughter, the struggles, and the love that once bound them. In that moment, 15 years of marriage unraveled before his eyes. At the restaurant, Jake's plan unfolded. Emily's lover arrived first, expecting an intimate, romantic evening. Instead, he was met by his furious wife, divorce papers in hand. Her voice rose in anger as she demanded answers, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. What had been planned as a private affair quickly turned into a humiliating public confrontation. Moments later, Emily arrived, her excitement evident as she walked through the door. But the joy vanished from her face as she took in the scene before her. She froze, her carefully constructed vision of the evening crumbling in an instant. Her lover stood cornered, facing the wrath of his wife, while nearby diners looked on in shock. The reality of her choices hit her like a tidal wave. The glamorous night she had envisioned was now a public debacle as Emily's night spirals into chaos. Jake's carefully orchestrated plan continues to unfold with precision. Back at home, he sits in silence, waiting. He knows Emily will soon return, only to be met with the reality of her packed belongings by the door and the locks that no longer grant her entry. Sure enough, her frantic calls begin. Each voicemail escalates in desperation. Pleas, apologies, and manipulative attempts to gain sympathy flood Jake's phone. But he remains resolute. Ignoring every message, he focuses solely on moving forward and rebuilding the life Emily's betrayal tried to destroy. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, the storm rages on. The lover's wife, armed with evidence and years of bottled frustration, takes charge of the situation. She doesn't just confront her husband about his affair. She ensures that both he and Emily are publicly humiliated. Turning her attention to Emily, she dismantles every excuse with cold, irrefutable facts. The restaurant patrons, stunned by the unfolding drama, watch in silence. Their whispered conversations add weight to the moment, amplifying the humiliation Emily and her lover face. For Jake, hearing about the fallout brings a bittersweet sense of closure. Emily and her lover are forced to reckon with their actions, not just privately but under the harsh spotlight of public scrutiny. What once felt like insurmountable cracks in Jake's life now appear as opportunities to rebuild something stronger. Though the pain of betrayal still lingers, Jake begins to see this moment as the start of a new chapter, one free from lies, deception, and the person who shattered his trust. As the dust settles, Jake reflects on the whirlwind of events that brought him to this point. Exposing Emily's betrayal wasn't just an act of revenge. It was a way to reclaim his dignity and find the closure he so desperately needed. While the ache of losing 15 years of marriage remains, Jake takes comfort in knowing he didn't allow betrayal to define him. Facing the truth, though excruciating, became a turning point in his life. Looking back, Jake realizes that while Emily's actions fractured the foundation of their marriage, they also freed him. Now, Here's the chance to rebuild his life on his own terms. With quiet determination, he resolves to focus on healing and finding the peace that had eluded him for so long. In a final reflection, Jake shares a powerful message. Sometimes the hardest truths lead to the strongest resolutions. Betrayal may break you, but it can also set you free. As the story concludes, Jake turns to his audience with a question. What would you have done in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. He closes with a heartfelt call to action. Thank you for being a part of my story. If it moved you, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing. By subscribing, you're not just supporting a channel. You're joining a community that values meaningful storytelling. Let's continue exploring these heartfelt journeys together. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. With that, Jake's story shifts from personal reflection to a shared experience, leaving his audience with a lingering question to ponder and an invitation to connect.